What are we discussing on today's Locked On Diamondbacks podcast? Well, it's crossover time with Locked On Padres host Javier Reyes to break down the impending fantasy season. The D-backs and Padres you have to leave your draft with, best value picks, late round sleepers, and so much more on today's Locked On Diamondbacks crossover.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
On today's Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, it's crossover time with Locked On Padres host Javier Reyes to break down the impending fantasy season, talking about the players you have to draft from each of our teams, breakout guys, sleeper candidates too. So to break it all down and discuss the upcoming fantasy season, we got the man, Javier Reyes of Locked On Padres on the show. There he is. Boop, 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 boop.
Here I am. What's up, everybody? Happy to be here as always, man. Happy to cross over as always. Always a pleasure, an honor, a privilege, everything. And we're doing something a little bit different, I think, today. And it's, this is going to be coming out on my feed Friday. So it's going to be a fun Friday for all my listeners and whatnot. And it's a passion that both of us share, although a passion that only you seem to be rewarded for between the two of us, which is an unfortunate byproduct of this whole thing. So
yes, Javi and I have been in the same fantasy baseball league for a couple years now. We've been in a couple of the same fantasy baseball leagues. One of them I commission, and I own the league that I commission. I think I've won it 3 of the last 4 years. I've been the champion of my own league. I don't know if that sounds sketch or not, but yes, I collect the pot and then I keep the pot at the end of the season. It does not leave my Venmo, which is a great feeling year after year. And so on today's show, we're going to be talking more about fantasy, D-backs and Padres you must draft, value picks, late round sleepers, all the good fun stuff. Because currently, I don't think Locked On has a fantasy baseball guy. We still have our friend Scott Cullen, but I think that position is currently vacant. So hey, maybe you go on Teamwork Online, maybe go find yourself the Locked On fantasy baseball host position, or maybe send an email if you're getting real frisky out there. But Javi, the first question I want to ask you about before we really dive deep into our players and stuff, because I think when looking at the D-backs, there's like a bunch of guys you could make the case for as who should be like the number one pick from your team, from my team at least, between Ketel, Corbin, and the other Corbin, right? We got 2 Corbins. But for the Padres, I really do think it's Tatis and then like everyone else when like doing a power ranking of your players. And so the question I have for you is, what is too early to draft Tatis? Because I think the last couple of years, especially post PEDs, like the numbers have been good, but they haven't been like wow or electric. I've been a guy that's taken him as in like the second or third round, like, okay, he's going to produce MVP numbers. But when I draft him, other people in the league are like, that's Tatis. He never plays. Like, I actually get like kind of crapped on for drafting Tatis, even though I feel like he's kind of undervalued in some of these drafts. So as a Padres fan watching him the last couple of years, like, where would you feel comfortable taking Tatis? What do you think is too high? Where do you think is too low? Like, what's his range going to drafts?
Perfect opportunity for me to plug my episode I did yesterday on Tatis. And one of the things we talked about in that episode is there is really valid skepticism. I think that there are times when I've defended Tatis for things that I felt were being overused on against him. I think that people were harping on certain things about him, like say his defense being bad at shortstop, which I do not think was necessarily the case. I thought that was really sensationalist. And I think that to a degree, the whole this guy's just a cheater is also a little bit overplayed. That being said, the numbers don't lie. His OPS has been down by almost 100 points, basically since the PED suspension. However, if you look at the hard hits data, you look at the average exit velocity, and he had a stretch last year where he had a 198 WRC plus and he had a 140 the next month after that. He started to show us the MVP quality Tatis later on in the season, and then you saw in the playoffs. So I still love him as a draft pick, but I understand the skepticism. Like, what did you rather have Francisco Lindor? That guy's been awesome every year. He has also some good stolen base value. Depending on your league format, that's another important thing about this. If you're roto, right, and still, which makes stolen bases more valuable, I would be a little bit cautious about Tatis because last year he only stole 11 bags, right? And that is a little bit down from what I think people are expecting with his speed. It might continue again this year. I still think he could get you maybe 15, 20, something like that. Like, you won't be a negative there, but maybe don't expect that, as opposed to Lindor, who stole 29 last year. I'm pretty sure he stole 30 the year before. There's just some more sure things, right? He's going 13th, I believe, or 12th in ESPN fantasy leagues. That's where they have him ranked. Or actually, hold on. They don't have him ranked that high. I wasn't counting all points. Give me 1 second. They have him ranked. No, it's still 12 overall. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, would you rather take like a surefire pitcher? Would you rather take Jordan? Jordan's sick, right? Especially if it's not a categories league. Just get a 30 home run beast that everybody's terrified of. He's going to be awesome with the batting average and on base. He's not going to strike out all that much. Julio Rodriguez has basically produced, in terms of roto stuff, the kind of what you've wanted out of Tatis, except he is not getting hurt nearly as much. So I think it's a risk that makes sense, because I really do think we might get his best version this year. But I do not have any fault with taking a bunch of players. I think maybe Trey Turner is the last one where I'm like, okay, I think you should just take Tatis then. But Bryce Harper, I'm not faulting people for going that direction, saying it's been a long enough stretch of time for me to consider Tatis a first rounder.
Yeah, for him, it's probably all about value and where you're looking at him in the draft. If it's like a 10-team league in the first round, 10 to 12 teams in the first round, it's probably too high. But if you're like mid third round of a 10 to 12 10 to 12 team league, mid to third round, back end of that third, maybe you're in that swing third or fourth round and Tatis is just sitting there. Could be like your second outfielder, maybe your third outfielder, depending on how you build your team. I think it could be very interesting. And of course, I still think he has, like you said, those advanced stats are still there. I still think he has a ton of raw power. The biggest issue for him is availability. Yeah. He's been a guy throughout his career who has had trouble staying on the field. So I think if you're telling me Tatis is going to play 140 games next season, I probably would look at him starting in like the mid to early of the third round. So I think Tatis is a super fun one, of course. For the D-backs, I mean, I think it's probably between the two Corbins of who you want to draft first, potential Cy Young Award winner in the National League, or potential, top 5 MVP go-getter in Corbin Carroll. Obviously, he's more dynamic with his ability to hit home runs, his ability to steal bags. Like, when Corbin Carroll's right, his speed is only going to feel even more elevated when he's on the bases even more. Obviously, when he's hitting at the plate, when he's drawing walks, you're going to see his speed even more magnified. And I think this is going to be the season where he puts it fully together from start to finish from a power department, because his rookie season, power in the first half, last year, power in the second half. Give us a full season of power, and this could be like a 35 home run, 65 stolen base campaign for Corbin Carroll. So I would look at him as the number one pick, probably from the D-backs. But outside of our two major outfielders, who would you say are like a couple more players you would have to leave the draft with if you're like a San Diego Padres fan, or just guys who you think are going to be major impact players from your team this year that you have to draft?
We talking like sleepers, or are we talking like a general?
Like, I'm talking like in general, like I'm talking about like top of the line. Like, you feel like
the top line guys.
Top line guys outside of like Tatis. So you feel like it's going to be a major impact dude for you this season.
I will say, for the record, they have Corbin Carroll as the 7th overall player, which is by roto ranking, by the way. But he also can be good in points because he does get a good amount of walks, and 79 WRC plus in the first half, 147 in the second. I think it's going to be more of the latter, by the way, for Corbin Carroll, and the stolen base upside is there too. I think with the Padres, Machado is really steady, very quietly, particularly in fantasy. In real life, it's a little bit of a separate conversation, but he basically gives you the power every single year. Every single year, he's always giving you good plus power. The batting average is a little bit down. If you're in an on-base league, that's also been a little bit down. But here's home run totals since he's been a Padre. 29, 30, 32, 28, 16 and 60 games in 2020, 32. And then if you want to say the last year he wasn't a Padre, 37. He's always giving you like 30 home run power. And that's kind of hard to find. And at his draft position at around the 28th pick, I trust him in terms of he's basically been a sigil of health, knock on wood. The only player who's played more games than him is basically Paul Goldschmidt, and that's it. I think Machado is going to be awesome. Then there's Jackson Merrill, and then there's Dylan Cease, and then there's Michael King. I like Michael King a lot. I think he's an awesome pick. I think he could be the type of guy that anchors your rotation, even though I'd feel amazing if he was my starting pitcher 2, maybe not my starting pitching 1. Merrill all depends on what your league is as well. If it counts stolen bases, he's going to get you maybe 20. And also batting average. If it's a batting average league, absolutely, I'm all in on Jackson Merrill. Watch out for on-base percentage, though, because he doesn't walk. And it is something that could impact his ability overall this year. But the sky's the limit, right? We're talking about redraft, too. A dynasty, take this guy like first overall or something, right? If you can, right? But in general, love those guys. The one that I'd be a little bit weird about is Dylan Cease, because he's going really, really high in terms of starting pitchers. He is the 8th one off the board. There's some guys I like more than him. Framber Valdez, he's always good. Michael King, you could just wait a couple rounds to get him. Bryce Miller, Logan Webb, Yamamoto. The only reason he's lower is because he didn't pitch last year, but he's awesome. Pablo Lopez has been a strikeout machine. Blake Snell is lower. There's a world in which Dylan Cease, great pitcher, and this isn't necessarily indicative of his season because of things like FIP, he could finish with like a 3.8 ERA. You know what I mean? And he'll still get you the Ks, but I think that those other pitchers, the ERA, there's a higher floor for them that I think Dylan Cease has.
And Cease does seem like he has a little volatility, like a little variance to his game. Where it feels like from start to start, you never know. Maybe he has like a blow up start, every like 6 start every now and then. So there's a little volatility in his game. The reason I asked, because like it's easy to say, yes, you got to walk away the draft for Corbin Carroll. But for me, like looking at I think we're looking at the same ESPN Roto rankings here, because like you said, Manny Machado, number 28, the guy I was going to go with is number 27, Ketel Marte, because every single year I go into the draft, I'm like, Ketel Marte is the best second baseman in baseball. I look at the draft ranking, I'm like, I could get Ketel Marte in like the 6th, 7th round, and every single season he produces like one of the best players in the sport. Last year you could have got him as a major steal as well. So it's easy to say, yes, I can't leave the draft without Ketel Marte, a guy who was a MVP finalist last season. But you look at historically the last few seasons, and when it comes to fantasy drafts, Ketel Marte is a guy who's been undervalued. He's a guy that he's a little bit lower in the rankings than you might expect. So it's easy to say, yes, take a guy who's been a monster for the D-backs the last few years, but you'll go into your draft and all of a sudden you'll be like, man, it's the 5th, 6th round and Ketel Marte's still on the board. He is someone I can't leave my draft without, because every single season I draft him, it's tremendous value, and he puts up MVP numbers. He's my guy you have to leave your draft without if you're the D-backs. Or you can't leave your draft without if you're the D-backs. I think I almost said that wrong.
But yeah, man, I agree. I do think his overall ranking right now is the most fair it's actually been. I think that past years, it's been like, why is this guy like the 60th ranked player? His whole thing is literally stay healthy. And if that's your only reason for not drafting a player, anyone could get hurt. You know what I'm saying? So don't use that as your only reasoning. Tatis, it's because we've literally seen some of the numbers haven't always been there. But with Ketel Marte, it's like, as long as he plays, he's great. It's literally just as simple as that. The only time he was a little bit was 2020. That's basically it. And then the year after. But that was also a case of being hurt. So maybe he doesn't replicate what he did last year. But as long as he's healthy, that's 28 home runs, probably. He's going to hit for a high average, and it's a really good offense, too, so the RBIs will be there.
Now we'll talk about some values from our team, some sleepers, breakout candidates. We'll break it all down in segment number 2. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. My favorite Wonderful Pistachios I actually have right here. Sorry to the audio listeners only. You're going to have to go to YouTube for this one, because right next to me, I got 3 of my favorite flavors here. And this is what is great about Wonderful Pistachios. Unsalted right here, no shell. Chili roasted, no shell. And then this one is roasted and salted with the shell. The great thing about Wonderful Pistachios is the variety. You could get salted, unsalted, with shell, no shell. Get a little kick to it if you wanted to. No matter what flavor you want, they have a variety and a profile that fits just for you. So please go get yourself some wonderful pistachios, get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Back here on the Locked On Diamondbacks, Locked On Padres crossover. We just discussed the top players from our teams that you have to draft. But now let's discuss some deeper cuts, Javi. Who is someone that you're looking at as like a value from your team? Obviously, there could be a few players they want to name here, but give me some guys who you think are value, being overlooked, going too late in fantasy drafts. Who you got?
This is easy. It's easy.
Okay.
It's the obvious one to go for. It's Nick Pivetta. He's going the 184th spot, starting pitcher 50 on ESPN leagues. This is easy. You know why? Because it's very hard to get strikeouts the way that Nick Pivetta does this late into the thing. Is it possible his ERA balloons? Sure. But if he's like your starting pitcher 4, you're telling me this is a guy that can go out and get 200 Ks, and he's in Petco, which is a pitcher-friendly park. And frankly, it reminds me a little bit of Joe Musgrove, right? This is a guy who's shown that he has been getting better over these past 2 years with adding the sweeper, with just fine-tuning his approach a lot better. I talked about this on the Nick Pivetta signing episode. Everyone go check that out. And that's just way too late. You know what I mean? Compared to the other players that you're going to find in that range, he could give you 200 Ks. And if the ERA goes down, which I think it can, because I trust my boy Ruben Niebla with the Padres, and I trust the fact that Petco is going to limit some of that power. If he finishes with like a 3.8 or 3.7, we're talking about a guy that's going to be like a top 30 starting pitcher that you barely have to give up anything for. And he's the type of pitcher that, like, that's why I'm not super sold on Dylan Cease, because Dylan Cease has the name value as the trust. I understand that, but there's a chance Nick Pivetta gives you a slight version of that, and it's all about value for me. So I'm all in on Nick Pivetta this year. In my bold predictions, I said he was going to be an all-star. It reminds me of when the Padres traded for Musgrove, that everyone knows this guy's on the verge of a breakout to really ascend instead of just only being an innings eater. I think he's going to be fantastic. And when I look at the players being drafted around him, I just don't see it. Like, why not take a chance on this guy? I think he's going to be awesome.
I like it. He is someone that we've talked a lot about on our crossovers the last couple of years as one of those guys with the advanced metrics. The nerd community loves him, but the traditional stats haven't really caught up yet. So big test for who's going to win, the nerd community or the traditionalists on Nick Pivetta this upcoming season. He's going to be a major swing piece, of course, for the San Diego Padres in that rotation. For me, when looking at the best values, if you're just going the ESPN ranking that we're using right now, he's not in the top 300, and he's got a lot of pressure on his shoulders because he's got big holes to fill at first base. Josh Naylor, 27 years old, coming off an all-star season where he had almost 30 home runs, or I think he might have had 31 home runs. I can't remember off the top of my head. Almost had 100 ribbies, and now he's sliding to that Christian Walker role where he's needed to hit home runs. He's probably going to be our cleanup hitter, hitting right behind a Carroll, a Ketel Marte, and we'll see whoever the number 3 hitter is for Josh Naylor. He is in prime position to now enter a spot in the lineup, a power spot, cleanup hitter for the number 1 offense in all of Major League Baseball last season. This is a prime spot for Josh Naylor to come in and really make a name for himself in front of D-backs fans after, seeing Goldschmidt go, seeing Christian Walker go. This has been, a turn of a lot of good first basemen the last few years for D-backs fans. They've been very privileged. And so hopefully Josh Naylor can keep it going for another season.
Does he do it? We'll see. Now, I will say that he's a steady piece. He's going to hit a decent amount, right? Like, he's going to hit for power. 31 homers last year, though. I don't know if he's going to keep that up because I don't know how the Diamondbacks ballpark does with lefties. And I'm just wondering if he will be able to work for that team the same way. But he's also a draft pick that I'm going to be like, this is fine. Like, I know what I'm getting here. He's not going to be necessarily who I want as my primary starting first baseman, but getting power late in the draft is always a good thing. So I'm all in.
Any other rapid fire best value Padres you want to give?
But I will say this. If you are in a batting average league, be careful with Luis Suarez. All right. He's around the 163rd mark. Do not overdraft him. But if you wait late and you're like, you know what? It's a categories league and I want to go for batting average, and frankly in points leagues too, I think he's going to hit like 340 this year. Like, I think that's totally possible. With the thumb injury he had last year, he was still a 300 hitter. So if you just want to like have a specialist to help you out in batting average, there's worse things you could do. I understand it's not a sexy pick because he's not going to run, right? That's the problem. He's not going to give you steals. He's not going to give you home runs. But if you just want a batting average specialist, not terrible, but be careful. Do not like overdraft him because you just want to have a batting average freak, because bottom line, he's probably going to hit leadoff. He's not going to score a ton of runs. He is a one category specialist, right? So be careful with the rise. But otherwise, that's kind of it. There's one player I do want people to avoid, though.
Oh, okay.
There's one player I think on the Padres they should avoid. It's Robert Suarez. Been talking about this offseason. That might feel weird, but relief pitcher 11 for ESPN. For me, there's some advanced stats, right? His Sierra wasn't too kind to him. He doesn't miss enough bats for a guy who ranked in the 35th percentile in hard hit rate. He stranded 80% of runners, suggesting that you were just obscenely clutch at getting guys out and making it through an inning. That doesn't always translate year to year. Also, potential that he's traded, right? His ERA in the second half was 4.28. And then lastly, I think this Padres bullpen's really good. So it's possible he has a little bit of a short leash. And in fantasy, in my experience, it's all about just security, right? I don't really care if I have a Josh Hader versus a Emmanuel Clase. Yeah, of course I prefer one over the other. But in general, the reason you like those guys is because you know they have the job locked down, right? For Suarez, I could see him not struggling a bit this year. And they're like, you know what? Jeremiah Estrada is awesome. He strikes out like literally everybody faces. He struck out 13 in a row at one point last year. Yuki Matsui has closer experience. Jason Adam, also very good. So that would be one that I'd watch out for. I don't hate the pick. It's just where he's going, 100th. Get another bat, man. Get another bat and saves elsewhere.
So it's more about the value of Suarez because he was very good last season. I had him on my fancy, on my championship fancy team, and Suarez was really incredible for me. So if he's there, depending where he is, I would definitely draft Suarez again. But yeah, if you're saying he's going around 100, like you could just look at the names who's going around Suarez, and it's like going to be pretty loaded. I mean, I'm just looking at it. Yeah, he's projected 103, right behind Alex Bregman at 102, like Luis Robert. Yeah, a 107 you could even do. Like there's some really, my guy Zach Gallen 116. Like I'm probably taking Zach Gallen at 116.
I'm telling you, man, he does not miss enough bats for the hard hit that he gives up. A strikeout rate declined in the second half, 4.28 ERA. I'm just saying that there are a lot more. Like at that point, let's just wait. See because other closers will emerge. I don't think you're getting like a super edge with Suarez. And like I said, really talented bullpen. It's possible if he blows like 3 games that they're like, let's try Estrada. Estrada strikes out everybody. You know what I mean? So we'll see.
Yeah. And then one last D-backs value guy that I want to give, a guy that's been the most underrated pitcher probably in all of baseball the last 3 years, Merrill Kelly. He's once again projected around number 300 in this ESPN league. Guys, if he's healthy, he's going to have 190 innings pitched. He's going to have a low 3s ERA. He's going to have 9 strikeouts per 9 innings. Like he's going to put up numbers that look like top 10 Cy Young voting, but no one's going to talk about it because he's Merrill Kelly. He's a boring pitcher, even though the production is right there with all the best pitchers in the sport. So draft Merrill Kelly. Thank me later because you'd be like, whoa, this is one of the best pitchers in the sport. Just take the name off the jersey, look at the stats, and be like, this guy is legit. So definitely draft Merrill Kelly near the end of your draft. And then a buyer beware for the D-backs if you're interested. He had a great season last year in a very small sample size. And now he's projected to step in and replace the Jock Peterson role. Pavin Smith. You're going to see his stats from the sample size last year. You're going to be like, oh, he had like 11 home runs in 60 games and 900 OPS. And now he's got that Jock Peterson role. All he has to do is hit. I am going to fall in love. Don't do it. Be careful. I mean, you can do it. He's going to be like the last pick on your team if you take him.
Yeah.
You might not have to draft him. But I'm just saying, buyer beware if you're looking for a guy who can't even play like any defensive position for you. I really don't even know why you would draft him unless you're just going to put him in your utility spot. But I'm just saying, be careful if you're looking at the small sample size from last season.
I will say, I think he might have eligibility one more year. Yeah, he has first base and outfield eligibility. I think he still keeps it. So if he does, if that's what it works in your league, I don't hate it for the last pick. I really don't.
That's kind of insane that you could play. You could put him in like infield and outfield, and it's like if you're in one of those leagues where you have like that infield spot, it's like, yo, you could really play Pavin Smith like your whole lineup, which is kind of crazy.
There was a year where like when Joe Mauer was moving to first base, and played it for the last 3 years. He had that like one last year that was golden, but everyone's like, dude, this guy's going to hit me 18 home runs as a catcher and hit 300. That's like, you know what I mean? Like, it was amazing. And then he lost it. And then he became pretty bad in fantasy. What's his name? That guy on the Saints.
Yes, I was about to say that next.
Yeah, like how he had quarterback, tight ends, and running back eligibility one week. It's like kind of like that. Yeah.
That's the greatest fancy hack ever. Taysom Hill, full-time starter, tight end eligibility. It's like, yeah, I'll take the best rushing quarterback and put him at my tight end slot. Thank you very much, fantasy. Incredible stuff by the platform. We still got some dart throws, some sleepers, and some breakout candidates to discuss. So Javi and I will give you those players when we come back in segment number 3. Hey. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save even more. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. All right, back here on the Locked On Diamondbacks, Locked On Padres crossover. I think we have more time than it seems because for the audio listeners and the YouTube listeners, I just did the ad read like 5 times. So it looks like we have more time than we originally thought, Javi. So now I want to discuss who are a couple potential breakout candidates on the Padres this year. You know, a couple of sleepers that teams and players need to watch out for, us fantasy folks need to watch out for. Who's under the radar for you, Javi?
As discussed, I really like Nick Pivetta for this team. I think that I feel like the Padres are kind of what you see is what you get, frankly. It's possible that something happens at relief pitcher where you're just like I said with Robert Suarez, like maybe you keep an eye out for your Jason Adams and Jeremiah Estradas, where like those guys are going to be good anyway, and you just kind of keep them on your watch list as at all times, just in case Suarez, something were to happen with him, he loses the role. Won't be easy, but I'm just saying it's possible he isn't great, and if Estrada's killing it, then maybe you go in that direction. At second base, Jake Cronenworth is fine. I don't think he's going to be all that relevant in fantasy. Machado's great. Tatis. I would probably stay away from Bogarts. I just don't know what you're getting from him at this point in his career as a fantasy player. Like, he's going to hit 270, maybe 280, but he's not going to hit enough for power. I don't think he's going to be able to drive in as many runs, at least consistently, right? Like, I'm hopeful for that, but I don't know if it's worth it going for him in that rate. But in general, it's funny, Millard, like looking at the fantasy rankings this year, there weren't too many sleepers that immediately jumped out to me outside like prospects, right? Okay. So like Jackson Holiday's going really low, for example. Like Junior Caminero is going actually high, 47th pick, which was a little bit surprising. But overall, I don't really see anything too sleepery other than Nick Pivetta. I don't think the 5th starter in the Padres rotation, whoever that ends up being, is going to be amazing either. Darvish has the health concerns, so I don't know how much you can rely on him. He will be good when he's there, but I think he's going to be about at value. For me, I'm just kind of like a hater this year. There's some players that I'm like, no, not Padres hater, just in general fantasy. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, there's some players in our division. Michael Conforto, my dude.
Yeah, I think you're drafting him number 1 if you get the.
I'm drafting him like number 1 just to prove something. I'm drafting him in our league, I'll tell you that much, and no one will be competing for that spot. I don't know, just 28 home runs. It's the Dodgers. They know what they're doing. He's gonna start on a great offense. 256, outfielder 99. Crazy things have happened. One thing I want to point out though is I want to talk about the elephant in the room, Mike Trout, 98th player. I kind of like that for him. Even if he gets hurt, if he just played like 100 games, that's not the production you're getting is probably pretty great. And especially in on-base leagues, I think that he's still capable of walking. Bo Bichette, I love. 114. This is a guy that can hit for 25 home runs, and he has extremely high batting average skills, and it's going to be a pretty decent offense. He basically just had one atrocious year. I like him where he's going. That's a perfect spot for him. O'Neal Cruz is risky. O'Neal Cruz is wild. Having him at 35, I'm just like, what if he becomes a guy who is a better batter but doesn't run and steal bases as much?
He
I
feels
just
like
see the
this year's
downside.
darling. It feels like O'Neal Cruz is like everyone's darling, dark horse pick, breakout candidate.
Yeah.
Like he feels like the guy that people want to make happen this upcoming season.
And my thing is like, I think I'd rather have Garrett Crochet, Rafael Devers. I know Devers has some weird stuff going on, but I'll take 30 home runs and a 270 average with plenty of RBIs.
He's only going to DH and have a monster season, probably. He's going to hit like 40 home runs. All he has to do is show up to the ballpark and hit now.
I actually would be worried if he's the DH.
You think? I think he probably will. I think they're just going to go Story, Bregman, and Christian Campbell left side. And then it's like,
I don't think Christian Campbell's going to be up immediately. That's my hot take. I don't think he's ready yet. But my thing is like, if he is DH, I would only be a little bit scared because DH actually players don't translate to DH when they've been playing positions that like, it's not a slam dunk that you're going to be awesome as a DH player. So I'd be a little bit nervous about that, but the upside is, I mean, we've seen Devers do it for years, so I'm down with it.
Yeah,
Matt
he hangs
Olson,
out with Big
Austin
Poppy
Riley.
every day. Shows up to spring training with Big Poppy. Like he's gonna
exactly, man. But there's just some Corey Seager. Wouldn't you rather just have Corey Seager? Yeah, he's not going to run. That's the problem, right? O'Neal Cruz gives you stolen bases, but Corey Seager's sick. As long as he stays healthy, there's probably shortstop one if he stays healthy. Frankly, like
he's the 40 home run guy if he's healthy.
He had he didn't play as much last year, and he still hit 30 home runs, and it's going to be a good offense too. So I don't mind that one. I would just be a little bit. I just think Cruz is really scary for me, man. Like it's kind of like for my fantasy football heads, kind of like the Devon A-Chain of this year, where like it could go the way that the Devon A-Chain season went, but I could also.
That's actually a great call. I actually love that. I actually love that comp so much. And I was in on Devon A-Chain. I don't know if I'm in on O'Neal Cruz, but I think that's a fantastic comp by you.
I could see 35 home runs, 30 bases, hits 260. I could see it, but I could also see hits 230. Maybe they're like, wow, he still hasn't worked on the swing as much. The talent is crazy. Don't get me wrong, but also worth pointing out is that it's not necessarily a great Pittsburgh team, so he's not going to have nearly the same consistent level of RBI opportunities. So you're counting more on like those counting stats with home runs and stolen bases, and I'm just a little worried, dude. What if he's a 230 hitter? I had him last year in our league, and I was excited about it, but again, it freaks me out. But I will say he is going to be a fun player, right? Because if it hits, it'll be like Devon A-Chain, where it's like, this is a blast. I just get to watch this guy take screen passes from a quarterback that's alleged to be better than Justin Herbert and just run for like 20 yards and touchdowns. It's great.
I would be a little nervous about Mike Trout. I hear your argument.
Yeah.
The issue is
I'm kind of backing out on it already.
Yeah. Like it's like fun. Like you see him there in like the 7th round, you're gonna draft him, he's gonna produce, and then it's gonna be August, he's gonna be hurt. You're trying to make the playoffs, and you're like, dang, Mike Trout's not on my team for the last 3 months of the fantasy season.
Yeah, it's tough. He's becoming like Troy Tulowitzki back when I played fantasy for the first time, where like when he plays, he will be awesome, but he's going to get hurt. That's the nervous thing. And at some point, the skills deteriorate too. Like I could see a world in which Mike Trout's healthy, and it's like he's hitting 250, he's got 340 on base, and he hits 28 home runs. Like maybe he's not the same player, right? Like that's also possible. Yeah. Like there does come a point where it's like you might just be past your prime. Another one like that, Jacob deGrom, 66th overall.
That's hot.
Passan reported today, or I should say 2 days ago, for my listeners, one day for you, that he plans to dial back his velocity in order to stay healthy. I don't know if that goes in a good direction or bad direction, where it works and he stays healthy, or it works and he's not the elite player, just a really good pitcher. So should you be drafting him that high? Does that make any sense? Like sure, he'll be great, but is he, oh my God, this guy can anchor an entire fantasy rotation, win you the league? Good. It's possible that he's not that. And at 66, I'm like, maybe just get something that's a little more sure of a thing, instead of going that direction. But what do I know?
Some quick hitters from the D-backs for some breakout candidates I just want to get off my chest before we wrap up today. J Mart, the closer, Justin Martinez, electric stuff. Watch out for him. He's going to definitely lead the team in saves, potentially have a lot of saves because that D-backs team is going to be good next season. If he's the full-time closer all year, he could be 20 to 25 saves with potential for more. Also, Gabby Moreno, breakout candidate. He's a guy that has shown a lot of offensive flashes. If he could finally put it together, that could be arguably the best offensive catcher in baseball, if not like top 3 to top 5. Maybe not the best, but maybe top 3 to top 5 if he finally puts it together. Dart throw deep sleepers. I mean, Jordan Lawler makes the roster. Adrian Del Castillo. We'll see. But real quick, I want to get a hot take off, and then maybe you could percolate on one real quick for because I have a dark horse fantasy MVP for the D-backs. Because I believe maybe it might be my hot take for the roundtable. We'll see. I'm still percolating on it. But I think this guy could be not just the fancy MVP of the D-backs, but maybe like an MVP candidate, not win it because, of course, still got the whole Dodgers team, but maybe an MVP candidate if his second half from last year continues, because I think we're going to get the pre-pandemic version of this player. Eugenio Suarez turned into Babe Ruth post All-Star break last season. In spring training, you would think it's still post All-Star break because he has crushed every single game he's played so far this spring training. I think he's going to enter this season without missing a beat from 2024. I think we could get pre-pandemic Eugenio. When you go back and look at the numbers, this was a 900 OPS guy, averaged like 40 home runs from 2018 to 2019. Still strikeout machine, but all the other numbers, he was essentially like Kyle Schwarber pre-pandemic. And now, the strikeout numbers are probably inflated. The average has gone down. The power has gone down a little bit. But I think we're going to see 2018, 2019 Eugenio entering 2025. So that is my dark horse fantasy MVP for the D-backs.
He plays. He stays healthy. The home runs are always there too. So even if what you're saying doesn't happen and he's not like the MVP version that we saw in the second half, he's still probably hitting you like 30 home runs. Like he's still definitely going to deliver power. Yes, it might cost you a little bit in batting average. I don't know if it'll kill you though in batting average, as long as it's not that last year in Cincy when he hit 198 and it literally did not matter that he hit 31 home runs. Like he just killed you so much in every other thing that it just wasn't helpful enough. Like 2014 fantasy baseball, I would have taken it, right? Because that was back when there was no offense. These days you could find it elsewhere. I like it, man. And I like Gabriel Moreno, actually, arguably even more. I am a don't draft catcher guy, personally.
Ooh, okay.
I do not like investing high in catcher because most of the time I'm like, wait a second. I took like a pretty good catcher who's going to give me 18 home runs and 75 RBIs, which is amazing for a catcher, instead of having like Bryce Harper on my team. You know what I mean? Like, I think that people get swayed a little bit by, well, this is one of the best at that position, you'll have an advantage, when I just want the numbers, dude. And those numbers that other players put up are just insane. So I would not do that. Gabriel Moreno going as the 12th catcher in ESPN leagues. I do like Austin Wells, who's going behind him, only because he has more power upside and Gabriel Moreno doesn't, but he's going to hit for a good batting average. He's always going to play because he's a great defender and it's a great offense. So if you're like me, Gabriel Moreno is a target because all the other positions that you've stacked up will make up for the fact that you're not getting Cal Raleigh numbers, right? Like, so I'm not a big believer in investing big time in catcher. I'd rather have like a super stud, you know what I mean? Instead of numbers that are good by catcher standards, not by in general. Remove that label. Are they that good? If you take off
probably not.
Catcher label from I don't know, like Adley Rutschman, is he still going in the top 40? No. So that's my thinking. I really love Moreno.
Yeah, unless you get one of those outlier seasons like Salvi when he had like 40 home runs a couple years ago, like one of those Buster Posey, Joe Mauer MVP type seasons. Like it's probably not worth to draft catcher. Just wait and take Gabriel Moreno in the last round. You might get a 300 hitter who hits like 12 home runs for you. Any last thoughts before we depart on today's fantasy podcast, Javi?
No, man. I love fantasy ball. I hope that here's the thing: is me and Millard drafted together. So did I do all of this just to throw him off and make him think that I like certain players and dislike other players? I have been known to do this before. I haven't, but you never know, folks. But happy drafting to everybody, and hopefully everybody has a wonderful weekend. Baseball is right around the corner, man. It's going to be here. Can't wait.
Yeah, I don't even think I really gave any thoughts on like general players in Major League Baseball. I don't even know. Maybe a guy that you should look at in general, a little Walker Buehler from the Boston Red Sox. Bounce back season, pitched a little bit last season for the Dodgers, coming back fully healthy now for the Red Sox, going to be maybe their number 2, number 3 starter. I will look out for him as a potential sleeper, my one guy, non-D-back they should draft. Javi, where can the listeners find you online on social media?
You can find me on Twitter/X and Blue Sky at Javapeno, the best handle in the game, JAVIIPENO. Also, go check out Just Baseball. Go check out my other podcast, Baseball versus the World, for evergreen, fun baseball topics. Millard is definitely going to be a guest at some point in the future. But otherwise than that, man, everybody just stay vibing, stay safe, stay healthy, or don't be healthy. Get some good food. Go to some local places, man. Seriously, there's some great food out there, man. Everybody have fun, especially if you're in the superior part of the country for certain foods, which is the New York metropolitan area. Of course,
some pizza, some bagels.
Yeah, man. Look, you can find great places everywhere. The point is that in New York, you will find a great pizza block like every block. That's the difference. You actually have to look for it, depending on where else you are. So, you know.
I've been in Arizona since 2016, still looking for the good bagel spot. Have yet to find it,
bagels
listeners.
Is worse, dude. Bagels is worse than pizza, low key. That's the one. I don't know why nowhere else can do bagels, but it's true.
It's the water. Zach Gallen and I have joked about opening our own bagel spot in Arizona. Maybe one day we'll do it. I'm going to have to import some of that good stuff from the East Coast, though, to probably get it done. For my listeners, please follow me wherever we stream podcasts, Locked On Diamondbacks on YouTube. Hit @CreatorThomas24 for the personal account on Twitter, or look up Locked On Diamondbacks both Twitter and Instagram for the podcast handle. Hopefully it's another fancy season where I take Javi's money and I keep in my Venmo account all season long. Until next time, sir. No, sir.